10 nights of nationwide demonstrations, where things stand as we head into the weekend, plus the May jobs report. How bad will it be? And we'll do some Love Hate 8 on this Friday. Here's what you need to know. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need2Know podcast for Friday, June 5th. I am Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Hey, Carlo. Good morning.
Happy Freitag, Jill. How are we?
Good. How are you doing there? You're in the burbs, I see, at your parents' house?
Still in the burbs. It is great. I really never want to go back to the city. Seriously, I've become like an old man here. It's great.
You've been there for 24 hours. What happened? What did you just go for a walk without a mask?
Yeah, seriously. I mean, my parents have a deck. You can sit outside. There's birds chirping. It's beautiful up here. I feel like a refreshed man.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. Let's get to the news. Carlo, for the 10th straight night, tens of thousands of protesters took to the streets across this country, some in defiance of local curfews. It was mostly peaceful. Reverend Al Sharpton eulogized George Floyd at a memorial service in Minneapolis as well. He had a message, get your knee off our necks. And he also announced a new march on Washington. It'll be at the end of August, and it will mark the 57th anniversary of the demonstrations. Meanwhile, in Washington, the White House is now behind 3 layers of fencing and barricades as officials prepare for what is expected to be major demonstrations there tomorrow.
I had thought that Juneteenth would have been a great time for a rally. The anniversary of the abolition of slavery, which is June 19th, which would be like a week or two from now. But alas, the White House, Jill, these pictures of the White House, I mean, it looks like a presidential palace in like some third world country. It's ridiculous. They have extended the perimeter now past Lafayette Park, past the ellipses. I don't know if they have some knowledge that there's going to be some sort of like major unrest, but I mean, from everything I've heard on social media, there's going to be major protests. But anyway, the other thing I wanted to mention this morning is this video out of Buffalo, New York. Police there knocked down the 75-year-old man who was protesting peacefully. He hit his head. He started bleeding out of his ear. This was all caught on camera. And thank God it was, because the police said in their initial report that this guy tripped and fell. And he obviously did not. These cops have been suspended. But, how many more videos like that have we now seen on social media? This one's particularly egregious. But in New York, at least, you continue to see these videos of the NYPD beating the crap out of peaceful protesters in the streets of New York. And who is that serving and protecting? Yesterday, Governor Cuomo said the NYPD had not attacked protesters with batons, even though there's videos showing them doing just that. So I think that we just got to remember that there's so many different aspects to the story. But there's definitely a sense that the police, at least in some places, are really, heavy-handed, to say the least.
Look, I also have seen some video of police being attacked. So I do want to mention that. I think it does seem like there is a change, though, in the tone of these things between the police and protesters for the most part. Do you know what I'm saying? Overall, it does seem like it's become a conversation where police are joining in some cases. Again, it is a very big country, a lot of different police departments, and a lot of different officers. But I think
that's probably the point.
But yeah, I mean, I think my point is just, I don't think we should paint this broad stroke over everybody, because it does.
No, I agree with that.
The tenor is changing.
Sure,
I want to briefly mention that we've got potential for a tropical storm or hurricane making landfall in the United States this weekend. Cristobal has weakened to a tropical depression, but it's expected to strengthen again when it starts moving northward today, with the chances of U.S. landfall along the Gulf Coast late Sunday night increasingly likely.
Yeah, this thing is spinning over southern Mexico right now.
It's
But
June. It
you
is
know,
early June, Carlo. This is crazy.
well,
We
that's
normally don't get this
that
stuff till later in the summer.
exactly. I mean, that's why I think this is we're going to have a bad hurricane season this year. I think it's pretty clear, which is not what anybody needs. But the other thing, the waters in the Gulf Coast are or warmer than usual right now, which is not helping. That's what we got to watch. Remember, Hurricane Katrina back in 2005. She that wasn't a bad storm until it got into the Gulf of Mexico, right? It's those warm, shallow waters there that really strengthen these hurricanes. This is obviously not Katrina by a long shot, but it's if you know anyone in New Orleans, my sister's in New Orleans. It's make sure they're paying attention to this.
Katrina wasn't even bad. I was working at the desk at NBC at the time. What Katrina, they actually thought that the city missed, actually got away with it,
Right
missed
in the
the
beginning, I remember.
brunt of it, and then the levees broke, and
Yeah,
that's really what
right.
happened with Katrina. It was terrible. Um, On to coronavirus, the latest on COVID-19. This is incredible. The highly respected medical journal, The Lancet, has retracted an influential study of hydroxychloroquine. It found that the controversial drug posed safety risks for treating COVID 19. Well, the authors of the study requested that that report be retracted over issues with the underlying data. Meanwhile, a separate clinical trial of hydroxychloroquine found no safety issues, but also no signs that it worked to actually prevent or treat COVID 19.
Right.
And the reason that
Right.
I guess, this drug is such a big deal is because it's the one that President Trump had been touting.
Yeah, exactly. There's also a separate study that was also retracted in the New England Journal of Medicine that had to do with cardiovascular disease risks on COVID patients. Both of those studies were drawing from the same raw data, so there was some issue with this data. A couple other COVID headlines, Jill, I wanted to hit today. The head of the CDC yesterday saying that he's worried that the messaging is not resonating, that the public health messaging is people are starting to slip in terms of masks, social distancing, not just related to the protest, but just a general sort of sense of fatigue setting in. Um, some better news, though. The WHO says they still have no reason to believe that the virus is mutating and getting stronger or deadlier. That was one of the things that people were really worried about, but no signs of that being the case.
Well, I mean, it's 2020 and we've had the craziest year ever. So, of course, we would have just
Yeah.
assumed that this thing was going to
Right.
mutate and become like, insane. So
Right.
that is very good news. We
Yes.
also, Joe, I do want to point out, there have been 1,000 deaths in this country in the last 24 hours. And there's a lot of concern that these protests are going to spark even more, because, we've when you look at, yes, everyone's wearing masks. Most people are wearing masks, but people are close together. If people get arrested, and they're in the back of a police van or whatever it may
Yeah.
be, no one's social distancing. You're inside. Um, On to the economic toll of COVID 19. In a couple of hours, we're going to get the May jobs report. It is expected to show the extent of the unemployment crisis in this country. So the estimates are for another 8 million people to have lost their jobs in the month of May, with the unemployment rate inching towards 20%. So that would be about double the peak unemployment rate that we saw during the Great Recession. And we got
Yep.
there much quicker. I think the question will be, when will we come out of it?
Look, that is the only question at this point. Um, One of the things that, meanwhile, the stock market continue. I don't know actually what the market did yesterday, but generally speaking, it's been going up, like we've said. Um, but one of the things that I really don't understand about the disconnect between the markets and the raw economic data, like the jobs report, which is why I wouldn't. Not that I have any money to invest, but if I did, I wouldn't be doing it right now. It seems like there's this assumption baked into the stock market that the worst is over, right? That there's going to be this quick snapback, the job market's going to recover. And again, maybe it's because I'm sort of a pessimist with this stuff, but I just don't see that happening. Like 40 million people out of work in the last 3 months. If you think that all of those people are just going to start going back to work, like in the coming weeks or months, that's just not happening, right? Like a lot of companies aren't going to rehire all of these people, not to mention the companies that are just like the small businesses like restaurants, bars, and whatnot, that just aren't going to make it at all. right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, if you're a restaurant and you're the margins are so small anyway. So if now you can
Right.
only have 50% occupancy or even 75% occupancy, that's 25% of your business that you can't have. So um I agree with you. I think that the economic toll of this is a lot worse than at least is indicated in the stock market, which is
Oh yeah.
basically inching back up to its record highs.
No, I mean, I'm with you on there. Let me posit a provocative question I was thinking about as I was falling asleep last night, to you and to everyone listening. That's just worth
Ooh,
pondering.
I'm
I don't
so
necessarily.
excited.
Yeah. um, Here's the question: is it possible that when all is said and done, when we look back on this year, this time period, that the conventional wisdom will actually turn out to be that we acted too harshly in shutting things with regard to shutting things down? It's just a question. I'm not prepared to defend that as an argument, but I mean, we'll see, right? Time will tell. To your point, like if people are, if things snap back and people are back to work, in the fall, the economy's humming again, then I don't think anyone will think that. But if 2, 3, 5 years from now, we're talking about, 10% unemployment, half of the restaurants in America, being gone. I don't know. It's a fair question, I think.
It's a really fair question. I also think it's perhaps an unanswerable question because it also, I think it's what value do you put on a life? Um,
Right.
and we already have 100,000 deaths and climbing in this country. And the question would be, there were predictions we were going to hit 1 million deaths, 2 million deaths if
Right.
nothing was done. So I don't know. I mean, and if it's your family member, what's it worth? It's just
Sure.
I think it's an unanswerable question. Sweden tried something similar, right? And I think you could perhaps look at their numbers. You could also probably make a pretty good argument that had you done the shutdown earlier, you could have snapped back a lot earlier. Like had you
Right.
been more prepared,
Well,
had you done a massive
yeah.
shutdown much earlier and just eradicated the virus, then you could really open up like we're seeing in China and other places.
Right. I
So
to
it's again, it's a great question, and I think it's one that we'll
Right.
be talking about for a while.
Totally. But Jill, I think that, I mean, just to be clear, that's still what I think we should have done. I still think that what me and you
Oh,
were,
you're not
were yelling,
advocating to just open
we're
right back
yelling.
up.
No, I think that just, to me, it seems obvious that what we should have done way back, when this first started, was a massive short shutdown, like the 30 days that we were talking about. Um, but again, you couldn't really do that unless you had the testing, right? It all comes back to the testing failure. I think that is the one thing that is the truism, right?
Yeah. Okay, I want to touch quickly on some controversies. If you've been on social media recently, you'll know about some of these. So there's a lot of controversy surrounding Drew Brees. He's the New Orleans Saints quarterback. He has now apologized twice after comments that he made in response to a question of whether he supported the George Floyd protests. And that led to an avalanche of criticism. He said he will never agree with anybody disrespecting the flag, which I believe he was alluding to Colin Kaepernick and kneeling during the
Yeah.
national anthem. So one of his teammates, Malcolm Jennings, called Brees extremely self-centered. Brees came back and he said he completely missed the mark. He didn't intend to add to anyone's pain. And it comes amid, Carlo, a separate controversy over the New York Times, which ran an op-ed by Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas. He called for the military to be deployed in American cities to put down protests. The Times now saying that opinion essay didn't meet their editorial standards, which follows a major backlash from within the New York Times, their own newsroom. Many Times reporters yesterday tweeted out that Cotton's op-ed puts their Black colleagues in danger. So a huge debate on that front of whether they should have published this op-ed from a U.S. senator.
Yeah, I always wonder with these like media stories like people like you and I are like total, like this is like catnip to us talking about stuff like this, but like do normal people care? I don't know. Um, but
I
the Times
probably
issue.
think no. I think we should probably make this a quick segment.
Yeah. Okay. Look, the issue with the Times is very specific. It's a question of, is it the responsibility of newspaper editors, opinion editors to referee a debate of ideas, or are newspaper op-ed pages essentially bulletin boards for whoever is in power? Um, the argument Tom Cotton is that like if you legitimize an idea like putting down protests with military force in the New York Times, you're giving the idea power. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a problem with it, but I'm sort of a purist. Like I think if the Times wants to run an op-ed by whomever, like they can do that.
I mean, he was
If you have
saying that sorry, go on.
no, I was just saying like if you have a better idea, submit it, to the op-ed page. Like that's the battle of ideas, right?
And he was arguing about sending in the military to shut down the riots and the violent part of the protests, not the peaceful protests. Um,
Right.
so I don't know. I tend to think if this is a U.S. senator and it's not hate speech, I think it's good to know I think a society where people can feel free to express their opinions, even if you don't agree with them, is a good thing.
Sure. I
But
think that
I don't know.
no, I think that I think there's probably a better question of like, do you even need an op-ed page anymore? Because it used to be like that was this, that was where you go for like this marketplace of ideas. But like you don't, Tom Cotton can say whatever he wants and just put it on his Twitter feed now. And if you disagree with him, you can tweet at him. It just seems like it's almost like a relic of another area. But the Drew Brees thing is a little bit more interesting because Jill, I think that has to do more with like actual cancel culture. Um, which you and I've talked about plenty of times. Um, Look, I think that Drew Brees. I mean, he's an idiot. Like he's the QB for a football team in a majority black city. Like just read the room, man. Like that's just not the time to make comments like that. But that said, I don't think anything should like. I don't think he should like lose his job or anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, every time I go on Twitter, I see there's a new person or a new show or a new fast food chain or a business that has been quote unquote canceled. And then you're kind of like, wait, why is this person canceled? So you have to scroll
Yeah.
down, you have to see, what they said or what they did. President Obama spoke out about this. He
He did.
said
Yeah.
this idea of purity, and that you're always politically woke. He was talking to young people at the end of last year. He said, you should get over that quickly. The world is messy. There are ambiguities. People who do really good stuff have flaws. People who are fighting may love their kids and share certain things with you. And I think that that's really well said. And I think before you go and cancel somebody, that's just like so harsh. I mean, look, I will, full disclosure, how many times, Carlo, do you and I have discussions after a podcast and I'm like, did I say anything? Am I going to get
Oh,
canceled? Not that
sure.
anyone
Yeah.
cares
No.
about me,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like, are we going to get,
Yeah.
and we're just doing the best we can. And, we're trying to have really open conversations. Yes, we're reporting the news, but, sometimes when you speak, you say something that somebody doesn't agree with.
Yeah.
I think we should just kind of give each other a little bit more grace. This is a
Well,
really
I definitely
complicated
agree.
time. We're all as a society struggling, and I think we have to. Where everyone's kind of being very introspective right now and thinking about themselves and their own biases. And I don't think if everyone's scared to speak because they're going to get canceled or whatever, I don't know what that means for us. I think we have to. Hate speech has no place, right? I mean, I think that
Right.
that's a given here, and you definitely can't incite violence. But let's get through this together, and let's give each other a little bit of a break here. It's been a tough time. I don't know. That's where my
No, I
head is
know.
at.
I think you're completely right, and I think you said the perfect word, which is grace. Like everybody could use a little bit of grace, right? Like everyone is under such pressure right now, and I think it's important to remember that. Like even if no matter who you are in this country, like everyone feels it. Everyone is exhausted. Everyone is fed up. Everyone is just trying to like get through the day, right? And I think that the more we can appreciate that, the better off we are.
Okay, on a much lighter, different note, we're getting close to a return of basketball. NBA officials approving a plan to resume the season next month. It will be an abbreviated format, 22 teams playing 8 regular season games followed by play-in tournament and playoffs. The plan is to play all the games at the Walt Disney World Resort in Orlando and test players and personnel for coronavirus every day. The 8 lowest seeded teams would not be invited. Is
No
that
Knicks.
mean?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, my poor Knicks once again shut out. Also on the baseball front, the owners and players, they're still at a stalemate over there, and they are running out of time. So it'll be really interesting to see if we see basketball come back before baseball. I told you, I think the baseball's the important one. But yeah, I guess it'll be good. It'll be good. It'll be kind of weird to see all these guys playing at like
In
at Disney
empty
World, I
stadiums,
guess.
right?
Yeah, right. In an empty arena at Disney World, but hey.
To me, it's not even that baseball's the important one, which I guess you could say it is, quote unquote, America's pastime. It's just the easy one. It's
Yeah,
outside.
exactly. Right.
There's no
Right.
contact short of, if you're sliding into
Yeah.
home base or whatever. I just feel like for them not to get an agreement together because of money just seems so out of touch with where we are right now.
No, I
Carlo,
agree.
what do you have for me in terms of good news?
I like the story about SoftBank, which is the big controversial. They're the Japanese conglomerate, right? They're behind the WeWork IPO mess. They're one of the big VC places in Silicon Valley. So they're launching a new fund exclusively aimed at backing entrepreneurs of color. It's called the Opportunity Growth Fund. And they're going to kick in $100 million to start it and not take a traditional fee to manage the fund. So I think that, that's just an example of business, putting their money where their mouth is. And that's real money. And that's going to make
Absolutely.
a big difference, right?
Yes, it's huge, actually. My good news, Carlo, between Tuesday and Wednesday in New York City, no new confirmed deaths from COVID-19. And that's the first
I
time
didn't
that's
see that. Is
happened
that
since
true?
March. Yes, it's the first time that it happened since March 12th. And for just a little comparison, there were 500 deaths each day during the height of coronavirus in New York City in about early April.
That's incredible. Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you, what we did worked in terms of really flattening the curve. Obviously, there's a million questions about what it also did, and then where we go from here. But hey, talk about good news, right?
I'll take it. All right, let's do a little love hate 8. Carlo, one thing that we love when people stand up for what they believe in, regardless of the consequences to their reputation or career. And I think we're seeing
Cheesy.
that. I mean, it's great.
No, yeah, I was gonna say it's a little bit cheesy, but it's true. And one of the things I saw was John Boyega. I always get this guy's name wrong, but he was in Star Wars. He was out, leading the protests in London this week, and I think he was interviewed, and he was like, "Yeah, maybe this hurts my my career in Hollywood, but some things are more important." So I think that, whatever the cause is, I think that it's great to see that. On a completely different note, one thing we hate, Jill, natural deodorant. Right? This is, I mean, I don't want to get gross. It's a little early in the morning to be talking about body odor, I suppose. But this is about the time of year when I start to question my relationship with Tom's of Maine.
I mean, look, I used natural deodorant when I was pregnant. It's not as effective.
Give me the
simple. I
aluminum.
guess
Give
we
me that
could leave it
aluminum,
there.
baby. Yeah, just give me
Uh,
all those chemicals, whatever they are.
okay, and then one thing that we ate, Nilla wafers, simple, sweet, the perfect cookie. I've been downing a box of these every day, and I've convinced myself they're not really that bad for you compared to
Yeah,
other
because there's no
cookies. So I think
because
that's
there's
where
no
I'm getting into
icing.
some trouble.
They are, Jill. I would never buy a Nilla wafer, but I would always eat it if it's around, which I think is that's a good endorsement, I think.
Fair enough. All right, that's what you need to know for Friday, June 5th. We've officially lost Carlo to the suburbs. And
I'll be back.
by the way, Carlo, what we just spoke about in terms of cancel culture and whatnot. Again, I think another opportunity we'd love to hear from everybody listening. Any thoughts on
Yeah,
it? And are we wrong here? Just let's have a discussion about it. That's what this is all about,
totally.
having a real discussion and conversation right now.
Need to know at cheddar.com.
Okay, bye, everybody.